Welcome everyone to the City of Yarra Council meeting of Tuesday, February the 2nd, 2021. I'm the Mayor of Yarra, Councillor Gabrielle de Vietri, and I'm very pleased to be able to welcome you to this online meeting. The Yarra City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners and true sovereigns of the land now known as Yarra. We acknowledge their creator spirit, Bunjil, and their ancestors and their elders. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people who have never ceded sovereignty and retain their strong connections to family, clan and country despite the impacts of European invasion. We also acknowledge the significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to life in Yarra. We pay our respects to elders from all nations who are joining us today and to their elders past, present and future. Tonight we have in attendance myself, Councillor Gabrielle de Vietri, Councillor Claudia Nguyen, Councillor Bridget O'Brien, Councillor Amanda Stone, Councillor Sophie Wade, Councillor Edward Crosland. We have an apology from Councillor Stephen Jolly. We have Council Officers Vijay Vaidyanathan, the Chief Executive Officer, Brooke Colbert, the Group Manager of Advocacy and Engagement, Ivan Gilbert, the Group Manager of the Chief Executive's Office, Lucas Gosling, the Director of Community Wellbeing, Gracie Carabinas, the Group Manager of People and Culture, Chris Levis, Director of City Works and Assets, Diarmaid McAlery, Director of Corporate Business and Finance, Bruce Phillips, Director of Planning and Placemaking, Reese Thomas, Senior Governance Advisor, and Mel Niku, Governance Officer. Item 3, there are no announcements to be made. Item 4 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest this evening from council officers or councillors? No. Item 5 is confidential business reports, and there were no items of confidential business this evening. We come now to item 6, confirmation of minutes. And the recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday the 1st of December and Tuesday the 15th of December 2020 be confirmed. Can I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Stone, a seconder. Sorry, I just need to see everyone on the screen. Councillor Crosland, thank you very much. All those in support? Thank you, that is carried. We come now to petitions and joint letters. Councillors, do we have any petitions or joint letters this evening? No, very well. That takes us to item 8, public question time. I believe we have several questions from members of the public, and I would like to first invite Emma Manning to address the council with her question. Do we have Emma in the audience? Good evening, Emma. Thank you. Can you unmute yourself? I believe we're having some difficulty hearing you. We can't hear you. I may just go on to another member of the public to ask a question while you have a look at your audio, if that's all right. I will move on to the next one, Glenn Morrison. Glenn, are you in the audience tonight?
Yes, I am.
Fantastic, Glenn. Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, I would. A bit of, first of all, good evening, and a bit of preamble before I get to the questions, if I may. And it should be contained within 5 minutes, which I know is desirable. So councillors may or may not be aware that many delivery trucks, including 22-wheel triaxle semi-trailers, use local residential streets in Fitzroy North to access the Piedemonte loading bay when there are more appropriate alternative access options via major arterial and collector roads. I'll provide some background. So Peter Montes were granted permission 28 and a half years ago in a letter dated the 28th of July 1992 from the then City of Fitzroy to use the residential streets of Brunswick Street North, Park Street and Birkenhead Street as an alternative way to access their loading bay. This permission came with the condition that their semi-trailer would not occupy the footpath or roadway on Scotsman Street, but this condition, of course, has never or has rarely been adhered to by Piedmontes. That's by the by. This 28-and-a-half-year-old agreement falls well short of current day community expectations and current Yarra Council strategies and values. A lot has changed since this agreement was put in place. Now, examples of the changes are as follows. 1, traffic volumes have increased dramatically in our residential streets. For example, Brunswick Street North increased 32% from 2016 to 2018 and exceeds what is deemed acceptable by Yarra Council for a local residential street. In 2018, 127 trucks per day also used Brunswick Street North as a travel route. Similarly, Scotsman Street traffic volumes increased by 13% between 2017 and 2019, and Birkenhead Street traffic has increased 240% between 2015 and 2017. All those numbers, by the way, are council numbers, so the reference is the council data. Number 2, Park Street now hosts a recently installed multi-directional bike lane. Piedmontes semi-trailers regularly drive in this bike lane as they navigate this very narrow street to turn right into Birkenhead Street. The third thing that's changed, Piedmontes semi-trailers regularly use Birkenhead Street as a parking bay, either due to difficulty moving into Scotsman Street because of the high traffic volumes or when they are waiting for Piedmontes loading bay to free up. Fourth change is the community safety concerns have increased due to significantly more pedestrians, including children and bicycles, using our neighbourhood compared to 1992. And the last thing that's changed that I'd like to point out is that Yarra Council's strategies and values have changed and now promotes livable streets, bike and pedestrian safety. It's also worth noting that the top concerns raised by the community in the Scotchma Precinct Lapham study in 2018 related to traffic, trucks, bikes and pedestrian safety. Now, let me give you a quick review of some history to provide councillors a better understanding. As part of the 2018 Scotchma Precinct Lapham plan, it was proposed that Brunswick Street North be partially closed to reduce traffic volumes. If this traffic intervention went ahead, it would have upset the delivery route arrangement with Piedmontes. In an endeavour to preserve their current access route, Piedmontes arranged for MGA traffic consultants to compile swept path analyses to show that there was no other way of accessing their loading bay. The MGA traffic report, which was dated 23rd of April 2019, which was attached to the Piedmontes letter to council officers, which was dated the 24th of May 2019, gave swept path analysis for 3 options. One of these options, which was Route C, was clearly viable. MGA concluded, and I quote, "The right turn from Nicholson Street to Scotsman Street is workable. However, the movement through the roundabouts along Scotsman Street are unsatisfactory," end quote. Now, MGA suggests that the islands and roundabouts are not designed to accommodate a semi-trailer, which is likely to result in damage to the road infrastructure. Council's manager of traffic and civil engineering...
Could I just interrupt you briefly there? Sorry, just to remind you that although you do have 5 minutes, that question time is more of an opportunity to ask a question rather than make a statement.
Definitely. Without this, I think the context is very important here. So Council's manager of traffic and civil engineering responded to the Piedmonte in their letter dated 24th of July 19 that, and again I'll quote, "The option will be feasible given the semi-mountable profiles on the roundabouts. In regard to the maintenance concerns associated with these movements, Council civil engineers advised that the roundabouts will be able to accommodate the low volume of delivery vehicles generated by Piedmontes." Now, it's important to note that MGA did not provide a swept path analysis for semi-trailers that could access the loading bay when turning right from St George's Road into Scotchman Street. The St George's Road Scotchman Street intersection is only 80 metres from the loading bay and is the most appropriate access route to the delivery bay. It provides the best outcome for residents and the safest option for pedestrians and cyclists. And Piedemonte semi-trailers can clearly turn right at this intersection. And residents have got photos showing how it can happen when it suits the driver. There's also no difference to the right turn ban restrictions that currently exist for the current route through the residential streets. So in summary, there is nothing stopping the delivery route for the Piedemonte semi-trailers from being altered from its present route through local residential streets to one that accesses the delivery bay from a major arterial and collector road. Now, my questions for the council are, do councillors find it acceptable that large delivery trucks unnecessarily use local residential streets? And secondly, given that there is an alternative route option that is viable and acceptable to council, will council rescind the 28th of July 1992 permission granted to Piedemontes that provides them access via residential streets and put in place an alternative arrangement that keeps the Piedemonte semi-trailers out of our residential streets?
Thank you very much for that background information and for your question and for bringing this to our attention. I appreciate it. I think that the best person to address your question at the moment would be Chris Levers, and I invite Chris Levers to provide a response for the council tonight.
Yes, thanks, Mayor, and thanks to the submitter for the question. Obviously, I can't speak on behalf of council or councillors, but I can give some context. There's a lot raised in there, and I probably can't address every point that was raised, but I would say that the letter that was referred to from 1992, I have seen a copy of that letter, and I would say that's not really the rationale for council's approval or support of that route today. Semi-trailer trucks are permitted to travel along Brunswick Street North, Park Street and Birkenhead Street, which is the current route. And it is the preferred and possibly the only route that semi-trailers can safely negotiate at the moment. The submitter did talk about an alternate route from Nicholson Street along Scotchmere and the roundabouts. I'd need to review the correspondence referred to before making much further comment, but I did check on this today, and the advice I received from the traffic team was that significant works would be required to make that route accessible with those roundabouts in place as they are. So there's actually not anything preventing Piedemonte's trucks using the current route as it stands, either local regulations or any state-based regulations. The trucks that they're using are an allowable size and mass limit for the streets that they're using, and I guess that's why they are using those routes that they do currently.
Thank you for providing that response, Mr. Levers, and thank you very much for coming tonight to submit your question, Glenn. Councillor Stone, you have a follow-up?
Just a question to Mr. Levers about this 1992 agreement. What status does that have? It's not part of a planning permit? I've always been a bit confused about its legitimacy 20 years later.
Through the Mayor, Councillor Stone, it is a good question. It's one I have also asked myself. I'm not sure that I can give you an answer, but I would say, as I did earlier, that that's not really what we're relying upon. I guess there is a possibility that Piedemontes might seek to rely on that. It is from the council of the day, and it is signed by an appropriate person from that council on the day. But really, it's about what is the most appropriate route for those trucks to be taking at the moment. So our position on it is not particularly driven by the letter from 1992.
Councillor Wade?
Could I just request either from Mr. Levers or Mr. Morrison just a copy of that correspondence gets sent to me as well? I've seen the 1992 letter, but I don't think I've seen the more recent ones.
I will send all that correspondence, it's council correspondence and Piedemonte's correspondence, which the residents obtained under freedom of information. That's the only way we could get it, so that you are well versed in the background.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I trust that this conversation will continue offline in due course. Thank you very much, Glenn, for coming tonight. Emma, we'll return to you to see if your audio has been sorted out. Emma Manning? You're currently on mute. If you'd like to unmute yourself to ask a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead and ask your question. Thank
great.
you for joining us tonight.
Hi. Sorry about that. I'm in my backup. I might be a bit fuzzy. I was just noticing a lot of empty shops around at the moment, and was wondering whether you guys had thought at all about potentially doing something about those empty shop fronts.
Thank you for your question. I think that I will invite Bruce Phillips to address the question tonight and take your question on board as well for future thinking as well. Mr. Phillips?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors. Certainly there are a number of vacant shops across Yarra and other municipalities as well, which is unfortunate. That has been the case for some time in some shopping centres, and council have certainly been active in trying to work with the traders and trader groups and resolve some of that. We've certainly tried engaging with traders and real estate agents around pop-up shops and aspects such as that, which has had mixed success really. There seems to be certainly some resistance from owners and real estate agents, regrettably, to try that, but we've achieved some. We've certainly got an economic development strategy that's been adopted by council last year, and there are a number of actions in that. So the endeavour is certainly to try to assist the traders and the trader groups. And as part of the COVID recovery aspects, I can certainly indicate that there's been some grant opportunities that council have provided to traders, and more particularly there's some precinct recovery grant applications that are indeed open at the moment. The second round, I think, is closing in about a week's time. So it's a very good question. Council role in economic development is important in terms of seeking to assist and facilitate, but council only has limited tools in its collection there to try to assist. There's also liaison officers that are working with the trader groups, and we've got some assistance with some working for Victoria officers that will also be engaging with traders over the next little while. So it's certainly a topic that council have been vitally interested in and working to, and we will continue to do that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips, for that. Are there any questions from the councillors? Councillor Landers.
If I could just follow that up. Now, I believe the Minister, I know in terms of Bridge Road and Victoria Street, and certainly the persistent vacancy rate in those streets, I think we're talking about a decade of persistence, so it's quite long term. I believe the Minister tried to engage in a sort of cross-agency approach towards finding new ways to try and activate those streets. Could you sort of explain what happened to that particular initiative?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Mayor, it's commonly called a roundtable report, and there were a number of local people involved in that. Some traders, one of our previous mayors, Councillor Bosler of the day as mayor, a number of other people from state government agencies and some MPs. That report is in draft form. The Minister for Planning, the local member of Richmond, is the sponsor for that project, and it's believed that report will probably be released in the not too distant future. So that's certainly suggesting some actions, some that we've tried, but and certainly some others. So again, just to stress, it is very much a topical matter, and council will continue to do what it can within its remit to assist traders.
Thank you. Councillor Crosland. Councillor Crossland, you're on mute.
Sorry, I switched off my hand, not my microphone. Thank you, Mayor. Quick question for Emma Manning, if I may. Were there a couple of streets in particular that you had in mind, or it was just in general?
In general, but specifically, I quite often walk down Queen's Parade and then I do a loop around the Smith Street and then back up. So I've noticed recently there's more empty shops than normal, and particularly given the climate at the moment, and just conflating two different issues. Say there's no vaccines until the end of the year. There's really a long time potentially till people might be thinking about starting up businesses again. And I was walking around and thinking that I remembered that in the city when they were having that issue, a lot of the shopping centres put in art installations, but it's easier for them because they own the centres. So I understand why there's a challenge to try to, not so much pop-up shops, I wasn't thinking pop-up shops, I was thinking more like putting things in the window, like art or something that can be there as a display while no one's actually leasing the space. Because I think that it's just really the atmosphere. I can feel that the atmosphere is not as vibrant when there's not that activity in the shop fronts.
Thank you.
But I was just thinking maybe there would be somewhere for artists to contact council and have a conversation about potentially linking them up with owners of shops who would be willing to have an installation in there, either free of charge or for not a lot of money, because there's so many artists around here.
I don't know if you can answer this, Mr. Phillips, but I know that in the past. Pardon? I know that in the past the council has looked at activating some temporary spaces for artists, either as residency opportunities or just exhibition opportunities. Are there challenges and opportunities there for council to explore?
Mayor, councillors, it's a good idea, and it's probably as far back as 6 or 7 years ago we tried this with a great deal of vigour, certainly in Bridge Road, and unfortunately resistance or lack of take-up by the traders and the real estate agents was unfortunate, and we're rather curious why that occurs. I think some traders are always hanging out waiting for the next significant tenant to come along, and they sort of see that as an impediment, which is unfortunate. I think we were successful with a couple, but in a large scale, it certainly just didn't have that take up, which is unfortunate. Via economic development, we certainly try our best to facilitate any new traders. We've got a concierge approach, which we effectively is holding their hands in terms of walking through whether they need a planning permit, building permit, local laws. So it's very much a facilitation approach. But in terms of working with the shop owners and the agents, we've certainly tried that. I can honestly say we tried that quite significantly, but the take up unfortunately wasn't there. I mean, if traders wish to come to us with saying, look, we've got a vacant shop, we'd like to do something, we'd certainly look at that. We certainly had a little bit of success with, probably in Bridge Road, a couple anyway, some decals and pictures in the front window, so it didn't look like it was vacant and disused. And I understand the submitter's point that, when there's a number of vacant shops, it looks a bit drab and the vitality in the street fades. And regrettably, that's occurring in a lot of shopping centres in Yarra, but certainly not only Yarra. I think even Chapel Street, I think the northern end, which used to be very vibrant, is struggling. So it's a bit endemic at the moment, and online trading and I guess DFOs and other places like that certainly have impacted. So the character of local shopping centres is important, and that's sort of a key leverage to try to get some leverage on, and we'll continue, but we've had minimal success in some respects.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Councillor Landers, before I come to you, I just wanted to check if Mr. Gosling had something to add to that particular answer.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, Mr. Phillips has answered that beautifully, I have to say. There's been some other work that's been done along Victoria Street with the shopfront beautification program. Councillors would be aware of that. There was a range of funding that was provided for the Traders Association that was down there. Certainly the arts, culture and venues area does facilitate from time to time the curation of public art pieces on not just shop fronts but often on shop walls, side walls and the like. And certainly there's a process that we have around that. As Mr. Phillips indicated, it really is a question of marrying up the willingness of the trader, of which it's sometimes that's patchy, and the capacity of the artist, and of course any funding that is available. So, but yeah, that I just wanted to add that little piece.
Thank you. Councillor Landis?
Yes, thank you. Just on the matter of artwork, I don't know if anyone has gone down Chapel Street, which is suffering at the moment. There's a massive artwork going in one of the vacant blocks. So it could be an inspiration for the City of Yarra as well. But what I wanted to ask was, I've been getting inquiries from traders who want to invest into Yarra. The first question is, can you get me some help in going through all the planning, permits and inquiry stages? What access do we have for a fast track can do? We'll get you through the process quickly. We're here to help you. How are we going about putting together a proactive approach to really getting traders in behind those cash registers quickly?
Mr. Phillips, are you the best person to direct that question to?
Yes, Mayor, I can answer that. Councillors, as I said, there's this concierge approach, as we call it, and that came out of a workshop. It was state initiated, really, but a number of councils have done that now. And as I said, we hold hands with the potentially new traders that haven't run a business before, and we help them through. So that's useful. However, whether it's the planning scheme and building regulations, for example, and health regulations, we can't bend those or break those rules. So if a planning permit is needed, it is still needed. But what we do, and it's been very successful, we help people understand, and there's been some very important case studies where someone's had an idea and it's proven that they've effectively avoided a calamity in terms of taking out a lease and getting caught when a planning permit might take some time. So that is a success story in the sense of that person to avoid any unfortunate circumstances. But it's certainly, it's more for minor applications, but all applications, as I said, need to run the process, and we can try to fast track things, but we can't actually, as I said, bend or just avoid any planning scheme, building scheme, health provision or local law provision. So it is a complex area, development approvals, and we're certainly in there to certainly try to assist people where we can within that framework.
Thank you. Councillor Landis, did you have a second question?
Yeah, follow-up question. Look, I appreciate the planning processes, but it's very frustrating when you've got lots of empty shops and it's taking 3 months to get an answer from council on various aspects of planning. I'm not suggesting that there are examples of that, but can we arrive at a sort of fast-track system of planning so that we can get people into the cash registers, behind the cash registers quickly? Doesn't mean to say we have to break rules, but is there a way of moving these processes to help to facilitate activation?
Mayor, the answer is we certainly try. But, again, if a planning application, for example, needs to be advertised because that's part of the process or there's a provision for that, then we can't deny that. So, for example, if we can do something in 3 months rather than 5 or 6 months, that would be our endeavour. There's 1,500, 1,600 planning applications a year too. So, there is some context to it, but it's certainly our endeavour to assist people, facilitate where we can, and to get approvals in place. So we can do that, and certainly through the COVID recovery time, that focus is even heightened. So we do what we can, councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. And thank you very much to Emma Manning for joining us tonight and for posing a question. It certainly spurred a lot of discussion, and I'm sure it will remain with us long after this meeting. So thank you for joining us tonight. I'd like to now invite Emmy Andriotis, I hope I've said that name properly, please correct me if not, to submit your question tonight. Emmy, are you here?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Good evening, we can, yes.
Wonderful, okay, well, good evening, Mayor and Councillors, I hope you're all well. Firstly, my name is Emmy, as I'm sure you know. So a little bit of context, and I'll get straight to my question. But I guess, look, I'm one of the young families that live here in Gordon Street, Clifton Hill, and have been here for 13 years. Prior to that, my husband's been here for many, many, many years. So we've seen lots of development in the area over the years, and then lots of changes. But the topic, and the question I have today is really to do with the train and the noise and the sound that's coming through. If I go back many years when we first came around, we've got the Vic Track property behind us where the laneway is, and the property had a 3-metre corrugated iron fence, if you will, surrounding right across the property on both sides. So it almost felt like 2 layers of fence before it even came to our properties. And I think for the most part, the noise of the trains maybe wasn't felt as strong as it is today. And let's go back a couple of years, there probably wasn't as many trains. I think they're coming every 2 to 3 minutes at the train line, the upgrades, the transport and so on. So good in so many aspects, but for us as residents, as time has progressed, the noise is becoming, the words I will use is unbearable. I can hear it in my front room when I sleep. I can hear it in the back room when I'm watching TV. And unfortunately for most of us sitting in the backyard, we have to almost stop talking as the trains come past every couple of minutes. So it is a difficult, distressing situation, to be honest with you, in terms of the feelings and the emotions a lot of us have at the moment. And I know I've, through Stephen Jolly, I did submit some paperwork through a petition. We had 32 of the residents sign that, and really seeking the council's support to help lobby the reinstatement of, not even asking for anything new, but reinstatement of, what we had or something better. I mean, that one was unsafe and it was all falling apart, but a reinstatement just to get some normality in our lives back and some peace and quiet. I have reached out to, different ministers and, Richard Wynne, Jacinta Allen, and now I'm understanding that the matter's with Ben Carroll, and I know they're probably the ones that to influence this change. And I'm told it's under review and it's still being considered, but I submitted that on the 28th of October. And I guess my question today, or one of my questions is, have the council done, or what has happened since, my petition was received late last year by the council? Has there been any progress on your side to assist in lobbying a fence to be reinstated, or even a better solution of some sort of a noise reduction fence of some sort?
You're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Emmy, for your question. I can certainly hear your distress and acknowledge that it's been difficult for you. I'd like to. There has been movement from the council, and I'd like to invite Mr. Phillips to outline what has been done by the council so far and the results of that. So, thank you, Mr. Phillips.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillors. Yes, the petition was lodged in December. Mayor and Councillors, you would recall that. Indeed, I wrote to the CEO of VicTrack on the 14th of December with a copy of the petition and seeking their assistance in resolving the matter. Mayor, your office has certainly also been in touch with VicTrack, I understand, and I think they were referred to Metro Train. So there's a couple of agencies involved. Richard Wynne, the local member, is certainly also involved, and I understand he's been kept up to date. And he has made certain inquiries of the relevant minister, Minister Ben Carroll, as I understand. So the matter has been taken up in December from a few different fronts, and we will continue to follow that through. I've had my office try to ring VicTrack today, but we weren't successful in getting through to the right person. So I'll certainly keep that inquiry going. Obviously, council don't run the train, so it is an advocacy topic, and following the council's receipt of the petition, that's been followed through and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips, and thank you, Emmy, for being here tonight with us, for asking a question. And I'm sorry to hear that you've been distressed and assure you that the council is doing what we can to assist your situation. I would now like to invite Kieran Power, who I believe has a question along the same lines. Kieran, are you with us tonight?
Yeah, hi Mayor and councillors. Thanks for your time. It looks like Emmy might have her hand up though.
Apologies. Sorry, Emmy, I didn't notice your hand up. Would you like to ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, it's okay. I'm learning this system. So yes, I just to follow up, and I appreciate that some progress has been made in following up, and totally understand these things take time. But I guess my question wasn't closing out that topic before I passed to Kieran was for commitment, but could I be seeking a time frame of because this has gone on from the 28th of October, so could I be asking for a time frame, or maybe we could get a further update from VicTrack or Ben Carroll?
Mr. Phillips, are you able to address that question?
Yes, thank you. I can't give a definitive time frame because it is advocacy, but what I can commit to is continuing to follow it through. I'm happy to write a further letter to CEO VicTrack, and indeed it may be Metro Trains, as it turns out, I understand now, and we'll write to the relevant people there, and I'd certainly commit to get back to councillors and indeed the head petitioner from December, which I think might be Emma. So I will get those letters done in the next week. I can't promise when we get a reply or when we get an active response. I think the outcome is certainly, if I understand correctly, that a galvanised iron 3-metre fence was there and it's not there now, and I guess a tall fence put back would be the solution, so we can only advocate for that. So I'll use best endeavours.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Thank you, Emmy. I'll now move on to Kieran Power. Thank you for notifying me.
No worries.
Thanks,
Mayor and everyone. I'm primarily here to, I guess, to show my support for Emmy and absolutely second everything she said in such an erudite way. I guess I would just really emphasise the extent to which the noise has become pretty ridiculous. I have a 1-year-old daughter, and it certainly disrupts her sleep. This is basically a situation where what was previously there was impermeable, and what's been replaced now provides a direct line of sight from my living room to the wheels of the trains. And it's a pretty intuitive thing to say that, you know, that line of sight is also the path in which a lot of the noise travels. So it is problematic. And, you know, as Emmy said, I guess we're not really seeking anything particularly outrageous. In a professional context, I've had a bit to do with environmental approvals for infrastructure projects in the past, and I understand what the Transport Act says about rolling stock, and that is that it's not legally, doesn't constitute a nuisance. And therefore, you know, we all know that as residents, and we're happy to live with the realities of that. We're not even advocating for sort of improvement of the fact that, you know, the track out there is really not in great shape, to be honest. There's a lot of squealing and screeching metal from the trains as they move along. Some trains are considerably noisier than others, but we'll cop that, to be honest. But, you know, would have thought it was reasonable to expect when that fence was taken down for safety reasons and replaced that there would have been some level of consultation or you know, consideration about a like-for-like replacement, given the noise attenuation benefits that's had. So, I mean, we're in a heritage overlay area, and we're certainly required to seek that kind of approval or you know, consult with council when replacing our fence. So I guess the questions that I have are, one, do you know if VicTrack or Metro Trains, whoever it might be, was actually required to consult with council or obtain planning consent to replace that fence or to consult with adjacent residents? And if so, did they do that? And the second question would be, if we're unsuccessful with your support in your advocacy in having Metro Trains reinstate an impermeable fence, what additional support can council offer to the residents at the southern end of Gordon Street to kind of get our amenity back to where it once was.
Thank you for those questions. Mr. Phillips, I think you're best placed to address them.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't believe VicTrack or Metro trains would require approvals. I think they're probably exempt. I would need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case, and hence they wouldn't have needed consent in my view. If they don't come to the party to put a permeable fence up, I'm not quite sure what the solution would be. Possibly whether council could put in some landscaping, but that's probably not going to solve the issue as much as a solid fence. We can certainly turn our mind to that, but I think trying to get some sort of permeable fence back to reinstate the previous situation is probably the best course of action we can try.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips, and thank you, Kieran, for your contribution tonight. And as you can see, Council will endeavour to continue the advocacy as strong as they can, and we'll be in touch following up the responses that we get. Thank you. Our last public question is from Shane Delphine, who represents Yarra Climate Action Now. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Shane. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, and good evening to you and the councillors. This is actually a follow-up question. So in November 2019 and again in August last year, WICAN posed questions to Council regarding the City of Yarra's strategy in relation to electric vehicles. There's a wide range of issues that a strategy needs to address. For one, in our question from August last year, we noted that there's no current private business model for the provision of EV infrastructure, and that as a consequence, councils have an important role to play in filling this market void. Furthermore, council really needs to urgently consider what forms of charging of electric vehicles in residential on-street settings it is prepared to contemplate and or facilitate. And the reason I suggest this needs to be done quite urgently is there's now a torrent of research that suggests that, in the words of the McKinsey's Global Energy Perspective 2021, electric vehicles are likely to become the most economic choice in the next 5 years in many parts of the world. So this is a problem that's coming down the pipe very fast, and we do need to, or the council does need to think about how it's going to facilitate, as in line with the climate emergency plan, how it's going to facilitate the evolution of electric vehicles, both the ownership and also the passage through the City of Yarra. When we asked our question in August last year, we were advised that a policy was under consideration and that it would not be available prior to the council election, but it would be available before the end of the year. And so with that background, this is a follow-up question to ask, when will that strategy finally be unveiled?
Thank you for staying on our case, Shane. Always appreciated when people and organisations are diligently following up with these kinds of things. So I'll invite Mr. Phillips to address that question for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, councillors, as you know, the climate emergency plan was adopted with a number of actions in the middle of last year. Certainly with the caretaker period and the council election, we haven't really had the opportunity of engaging with councillors, the new council, directly, but over the next little while there's some workshops with councillors which will be raising some of these topics. We certainly recognise, I think at the moment there's only 2 Tesla charge stations in the Yarra district and no other public utilities, so that is a topic clearly. And we certainly recognise that homes without driveways is also a little bit tricky in terms of people can't install a charge point in their carport or their garage. So there is some matters to work through. So we will be engaging with councils, as I said, on a number of environmental related topics, and this will be one of them. So we have a couple of discussion papers prepared, but that engagement with councils needs to occur. So there was some funding allocated last year, but that was reallocated due to the COVID recovery aspects that obviously hit the council and the community last year. So that's that aspect. What council have been doing, we certainly, via significant planning applications, there's requirements for electric charge point capability in those developments, so that they're either provided or they're capable with obviously the wiring of the building. We're working on environmental sustainable development policy with other councils, known as a CASB group of councils. That certainly will be advocating a proposed planning scheme or an intended planning scheme amendment into all of those councils' planning schemes, and that would be a matter that this would be picked up as well. So there's also philosophically a topic, Mayor and councillors, in terms of council would need to decide on how those charge stations should be provided. Should they be market-led, left to the private sector, if you like petrol stations provide petrol? Whether they would provide electric charge stations. So whether that's one option, direct provision, whether it's by council and whether council would charge for the electrical supply to an individual charging their car or not. There's the advocacy topic or a partnership topic. So there's a number of things from a policy point of view that the council need to be engaged in, and obviously some judgments made along that path. Innovation and technology plays a part in this too, and I understand there's some technology now we're using street light poles. I'm not too familiar with that at this stage, but technology no doubt will continue to improve. And there's obviously also the advocacy to federal and state, and council have submitted to some of those studies. There's also the state have a zero emissions vehicle roadmap. So, one council probably can't just solve the world here. It's a state or federal matter, and I agree that electric cars increase is a good thing, and no doubt clearly will happen. And certainly council have transitioned some of its vehicle to hybrids, and there's an electric, maybe one or two electric tip truck that council have purchased, I think, probably even 12 months ago. So there are a number of things there, Mayor, that we need to talk to, and there's some policy matters that council will need to be engaged with and determine a way forward for staff to pursue. So it's a number of topics there, Mayor, but it's works in progress, but there is some policy positions the council will need to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Is there a follow-up question from
Sorry,
Shane?
there is. Sorry, I was just trying to work out how to raise my hand. I guess last year, I don't think Mr. Phillips responded to my question, but I don't remember the gentleman that did respond to my question, but there was a discussion of some form of policy or a strategy paper that was, and that was also when I asked the question in 2019, I remember also being the discussion being around there was going to be a comprehensive look at this issue, and rather than just being some kind of a piecemeal fashion. So I don't get the sense from Mr. Phillips' response this evening that there is going to be a strategy. There's just going to be a number of topics that you're going to consider, but it does seem to me that there is a holistic issue here. We've got this significant change in our transportation infrastructure, and I guess the question is, how does council best facilitate that? And noting, I note Mr. Phillips' response, but I do note that other councils, particularly the City of Moreland, have been very proactive in this area and have done a lot more, to be honest, than the City of Yarra to date. So I would make that point. And again, so my question really is there going to be a strategy, or is there going to be just a piecemeal addressing of individual issues when they arise?
Mr. Phillips?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's certainly an action to progress under the climate emergency plan. So whether there's a number of actions that flow out of that or a strategy, I think we'll need to wait and see. From 2019, I know there was a discussion paper we submitted to, I think it was federal position there, and advocacy work, and last year to the state. So I understand the submitter's point. Last year was a difficult year with a number of things. we need to get a climate emergency plan prepared and adopted, and COVID and those sorts of things. So that it's not an excuse, but the world moves a bit too. And, council need, I think, to also consider where the state are taking this. It's no good council necessarily trying to do it alone. So we do need to align with a number of aspects and work out what's the best way forward. 2 years ago, it might have been a certain way. In the next couple of months, it might be somewhat different. So there's a conversation to be had with all councillors, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Are there questions from councillors? I guess I have a question just to ask whether this is something that would be captured by the integrated transport strategy, if that's which comes under the climate emergency plan.
Mayor, an integrated transport strategy would probably again just resolve that certain matters be pursued. An integrated transport strategy in its own right, unless there's a whole chapter on that and actions that flow, isn't going to be a strategy on this topic in its own. So there are a number of threads that need to be brought together. I believe there is a need for that, but again, we need to just make some judgments of what council should be doing, and council need to also make some judgments of what it's prepared to do. There's very much a difference between if council are going to provide the facilities or some facilities and also free of charge. That's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is the private sector do that. Moreland, I'm aware, did provide maybe half a dozen or so a couple of years ago, and that was as an endeavour to, as a bit of a catalyst to assist people with electric vehicles. Yarra City Council needs to assist people with electric vehicles, and as I said at the outset, certainly with people that don't have driveways to get to carports and garages for power charging. So inner city is a little bit more difficult, I suppose, than the suburbs where people have driveways. So there is a number of topics, Mayor. Look, I can't really add any more tonight, but I know as councillors are aware there's a workshop next Monday with a number of topics and threads that need to be put on the table, and out of that council might be starting to point a direction for officers to pursue.
Thank you very much for your considered answers, Mr. Phillips, and thank you for your question, Shane, tonight, and for joining us. We'll now move on to item number 9, delegates' reports. Councillors, are there any delegates' reports? Councillor Stone?
Thank you. I have what's not technically a delegate's report, but I don't know where else it belongs, so I'll just make note of it here if I may. It's to acknowledge a member of the Fitzroy Junior Football Club, Ellie McKenzie, who has been the #1 draft pick. She was picked up by Richmond in the 2020 AFLW draft, which is a phenomenal achievement. And I just want to note that she started playing at Fitzroy in 2011 when she was only the second ever girl enrolled to play at the club. I remember, as would Councillor Jolly, the introduction of girls' teams at Fitzroy way back then, and they are now amongst the strongest in the Yarra League. They're very competent. She went on to play 125 games for Fitzroy. Her achievements were highlighted to Nichols Ward councillors by local resident John Armstrong, who wrote in an email that Ellie started in Clifton Hill Auskick before graduating to Fitzroy Juniors and has honed her skills at Alfred Crescent, Ramsden Street, Brunswick Street Oval and Victoria Park, all very well-known Yarra locations. She now joins other Fitzroy Junior Football Club graduates in the AFLW, Nell, Morris Dalton and Maddie Guerin. And he goes on to say, of course, it's inspiring for 11-year-olds like my daughter, but it's also good news for the gender equity policies of the City of Yarra. So it's really great that that's been acknowledged. It's a really fantastic achievement. It's really good to hear the pride that the club has in the achievements of their girls and women's players. And also worth noting that the AFLW season launch was held at Peterson Oval last week, and we've got a number of matches, as everyone knows, scheduled at Victoria Park this year, cementing Yarra as a focal point for women's football. So I want to thank John on behalf of Council for prompting this acknowledgement and send a huge congratulations not just to Ellie but also to the club, which has clearly nurtured self-confidence, teamwork and success in so many young players over the last 10 years. So I move that acknowledgement be accepted. Is that the way to do it?
Thank you, Councillor Stone, for that, and congratulations, Ellie, for such an achievement and for paving the way. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. Does anyone wish to speak against it? All those in favour? Thank you. That's passed unanimously.
Mayor,
yes,
I just need to inform you that Councillor Bridget O'Brien will be delayed and she won't be able to join for another half an hour because her updates are still happening and there's someone from IT helping her. Okay,
thank you, CEO. Is there a need to delay anything? We have quorum, so I'll just continue unless otherwise told.
It's Mr. Thomas will note the time, absence and time.
Okay, thank you very much. We now come to item 10, general business. Councillors, do we have any general business this evening? No. And item 11, councillors, do we have questions without notice? Councillor Landers?
Thank you, Mayor. I've got two questions, and I'll sort of take them one at a time if that's okay. The first question goes to resident has sent me an email, but I've observed for myself, and it goes to the overgrown vegetation on the traffic islands in Burnley Street. I was wondering if the officers could make a comment about that. Thank you.
Who would be the appropriate council officer to address this question?
Mr. Levers.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, I can provide a response. Thanks through you, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Landers, for the question. Yes, there is a bit of an issue with the current maintenance on the traffic islands at Burnley Street. Those are Vic Roads assets, and they were planted about 10 years ago, and unfortunately they were planted at a high point on the road without any irrigation, so they're difficult to maintain at the best of times, and they've really performed poorly. We've also had a bit of an issue trying to get permits from Vic Roads to enable access to those treatments to be able to maintain them. We're working through that with Vic Roads at the moment, but there's certainly a cost and to maintain those we need to put traffic management in place, and that's part of the reason we need a permit to do so. So it's quite a costly and quite an involved exercise, which has made it difficult. The team, noting those difficulties, the team have actually started to last week remove those plantings that hadn't been doing well, and next week I'll complete the work to return those to granitic sand. I think our view would be that it might be a better amenity and a better outcome to have some form of planting there, but just with the inability to get access, we haven't been able to maintain those in a satisfactory way. So if we can resolve those issues with Vic Roads, we'll certainly have a look at that treatment. The CEO and I have been actively negotiating and advocating to Vic Roads to resolve those issues.
Thank you, Mr. Levers. Did you have a follow-up question, Councillor Landers? Or another question?
Another question, Mayor. Thank you. So this question goes to commentary I've received, both in terms of correspondence and direct statements from witnesses, and also my own experience was the works along Bridge Road between the 3rd and 13th of January, the tram works there. And the disappointment well, the statements I've received talk to the distress of pedestrians, particularly elderly who were mobility challenged, impeded footpaths, parked cars, confused signage. My experience was really disappointing. The permeability of the works was impossible. It was really a very disappointing exercise. There was no opportunity on many occasions for people to get across Bridge Road. There was no direct signage where they could cross Bridge Road. And so my question goes, and the other thing I wanted to remark on was traders sending photographs of cars being towed away on Bridge Road, where it was pretty clear from the signage on Bridge Road that the road was closed. It wasn't acting as a clearway. And so they wanted to know why cars were being towed away. So I guess my question goes to council officers. Can they explain the failure of the road authority and agents acting on behalf of the road authority with their consent to deliver and maintain communications with residents, visitors and traders in respect to the pedestrian access, accurate directional signage, adequate crossovers, parking and operation of clearways? Can officers remark on the failure of the road authority and the agents acting on behalf of or with consent of the road authority to explain fully to the community the advanced detail of the works, including changes to the operation of the road, new poles, etc., and the lack of future-proofing opportunities that could mitigate future disruption? And can officers remark on a way forward that encourages the road authority and agents acting on behalf of the road authority to be more open and more consultative with the community in respect of these sort of place movement activities? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landers. Mr. Phillips, I'll hand over to you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, councillors. The council experience with a number of tram works has been a little bit tricky and problematic. Certainly, maybe 18 months ago, the Nicholson Street tram works were of some concern, where the DDA tram stops were put in Nicholson Street. More recently, Victoria Street, that was probably done in COVID time, so that was probably less of a concern. But out of the what I can say to councillors is, out of the Nicholson Street matter, we had a number of conversations. In fact, we stressed and made a number of meetings with the DOT, Vic Roads and Yarra Trams. So there is a topic that the state government, in my view, need to get better in terms of coordinating amongst the agencies, because there's DOT, Vic Roads, Yarra Trams and then Yarra Trams contractors. So that coordination is needs to be improved. We spent a lot of time on those learnings with Nicholson Street. We had conversations with the Yarra Trams and DOT in relation to the proposed Victoria Street works probably middle of last year. When we learnt that the Bridge Road tram works were proposed only in about September last year, we worked the best we possibly could with those agencies and highlighted all those learnings and the issues arising in terms of notifications and aspects like that. The road traffic plans really prepared by Yarra Trams. I know that the organisation expressed some concerns on some aspects, but as agencies representing the state government, they effectively could proceed with some of those things. So it's probably less than exactly what we would have liked in relation to some of the works. Pedestrians are part of that road safety aspect. The agencies need to ensure public safety, so I can't really comment a great deal more on that right now. So the disruptions are real. They're heavy works in terms of replacing tram tracks. They were done in a period of time. Fortunately, they were done in a period of time where hopefully it was quieter. It was always going to disrupt the traders and the local residents. Any tram works would. The cars being towed, I understand that some were, and that was regrettable, and I understand the council's parking officers and others approached DOT and or Vic Roads, and I think there was some action that probably didn't occur initially, and then I think the tow-away proceedings ceased. So we will talk to DOT and Yarra Trams again about how Bridge Road went. I think there are some learnings.
More than learnings.
It might be also appropriate that we formalise some of our concerns in writing as well. So I guess that's an overview, Mayor.
I just want to add, Mayor, that the Yarra Tram CEO has written to me because we had raised all these issues, and he has escalated it to his office. I mean, it has been escalated to his office, and in about 10 days' time, I don't know the exact date, he's coming to meet me, and I would appreciate, we are giving our feedback, but coming from councillors will have more impact or more weight. So please, Councillor Landis, you or even Councillor Crossland, because you both are Melbourne Ward councillors, including our Deputy Mayor, if you can give us some more insight, I can add to that, because he seems genuine to get some feedback.
Thank you. Councillor Landis?
Yeah, I'm really furious. I was hearing stories about elderly people with their walking frames that tripped over. They had to be actually carried. There was no way for those people to move. There was workers' cars parked on side streets. They literally could not transit. On very hot days, I heard stories of people desperate trying to find a way across Bridge Road. They'd walk up to Coppin Street because there was signage telling them that's where they could cross, but when they got to Coppin Street, there was nowhere to cross. And then they had to go all the way back to Bridge Road. They had to go further up to Bridge Road. Then it was just impossible. And these were elderly people on hot days, and everything was unacceptable. And it was absolute travesty, and it shouldn't happen again. Mayor, we're encouraging people to live along these streets. We're providing activation. There's businesses there. They've employed people. They've just come through COVID. And the amount of disruption and the lack of sympathy and the lack of empathy for the whole public was not acceptable. And I think there's got to be a letter in the strongest of terms to Yarra Trams. It's unacceptable.
Thank you, Councillor Landis. I think we'll follow this up with the CEO and Mr. Phillips in the coming days, and I think that will definitely be heard and passed on.
Yep, and if possible, we are happy if Julian, I mean the CEO of Yarra Trams, is ready to meet. Why don't I invite at least the Melbourne Ward councillors, and then, because we had this problem with Nicholson Street, as Bruce mentioned, but we managed to really mitigate some of these matters because it was getting really difficult, and it'll be another good reminder. This is a new CEO, and it'll be good for him to get engaged more with the Yarra Council and the disruption.
Thank you. That seems to be well received. Thanks very much. This takes us now to item 12 and council business reports. And we have the Acting Ageing Advisory Committee membership. Would councillors like an officer report? Yes. In that case, I'd like to invite Adrian Murphy to present us with a short report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I'm pleased to present the outcomes of the expression of interest process to recruit new members to Council's Active Ageing Advisory Committee and seek endorsement of their nomination. As an advisory committee to Council, it represents the interests of people 50 plus living in Yarra. The purpose of the committee is to provide information and advice to Council on the development and implementation of the active and healthy ageing strategy, integration of the age-friendly domains across some Council activities, and consider impact of federal, state and local government policies and programs. The terms of reference highlight that the committee will support a human rights-based approach, exchange information and views between community, council and other representative bodies, and promote the independence, wellbeing, quality of life and the positive contribution people aged 50 plus make to the community. The report outlines the expression of interest process that has been undertaken, including the membership criteria, actions taken to promote and encourage nominations, and the selection process completed in January of this year. Without going into detail, note that this included promotions throughout the community, including with community groups and agencies, and the selection process included a focus on nominees' capacity to consult and represent a wide range of views,
their understanding of the needs of people aged 50 plus from diverse backgrounds, their willingness to work with council to inform stakeholders of activities and outcomes, and the capacity to analyse information and provide advice on issues. We're really pleased to receive 22 applications for the 8 positions, and the selection panel was extremely impressed with the diversity of knowledge, skills and community representation reflected in the applications. The 8 nominees comprise representation from 8 suburbs across Yarra and range in age from 41 to 80 and have a strong mix of technical and professional skills, cultural backgrounds and age and gender as mentioned. Collectively, the nominees have knowledge and experience in the areas of neighbourhood houses and lifelong learning, community health, leisure and recreation activity, LGBTI community engagement, experience on a range of community-based committees, knowledge of the impact of social and physical environments on ageing, and also representative from called community networks, and also importantly, lived experience of the formal aged care system, including supporting relatives. The committee is currently chaired by Councillor Amanda Stone, and subject to Council's endorsement tonight, a key focus over the coming months will include the consideration of the second 2-year action plan of the Active and Healthy Ageing Strategy and consideration of the upcoming outcomes of the Royal Commission into Aged Care, to name but 2 issues. So in conclusion, it is recommended that Annie Ford, Sandra Heaps, Yen Kim, Bruce McCassie, Jonathan Morris, Mary Natoli, Regina Wheatcroft and Katerina Yakimov be appointed as members of the Active Ageing Advisory Committee. And secondly, that Council write to all members of the community who expressed interest advising of this decision and thank them for nominating.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy, for that report. Are there any questions from councillors? No? In that case, there are no public submissions. There's a recommendation in front of us, which Mr. Murphy referred to, and I seek a way forward from councillors. Councillor Stone, is your hand up? It is lost in the swimming pool behind you. Thank you, Councillor Stone. You'll move the motion, the recommendation. Do I have a seconder? I'm happy to second. Oh, Councillor Crosland, thank you. I would now like to invite the mover to speak to the motion, Councillor Stone.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Murphy, for that very comprehensive report. As the chair of this committee, I'm really excited about the prospect of 4 years with this particular group. I wasn't on the selection panel, but the applications were shared with me and we had 22 sensational people to choose from. We don't often get that with this particular committee. So the selected 8 members are really fantastic in the breadth of experience, the extent of their network, the variety and diversity of their background and their contribution, and their connection to current issues around the life cycle and ageing in Yarra. So I really can't wait to see what sort of advice and guidance they're going to provide to council. I think we're at an interesting time with this particular committee. The fact that we have to talk about promoting or acknowledging the contribution of people over 50 is a little bit sad, really, because people of all ages make a contribution, and in Yarra you only have to attend a number of council meetings to realise that the most active participants in civic life are actually older people in Yarra, and they make an enormous contribution. So it would be great if we can get to a point where we just look at this continuum of life and we don't have to keep promoting one age group or over another. So thank you very much, Mr. Murphy and your team, for going through this selection process. I'd also like to acknowledge the retired committee that finished their term last year and gave a particular solid contribution to Advice to Yarra, and assuming this motion is passed, congratulate all 8 new members of this committee and look forward to their contribution.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Crosland, would you like to speak to the motion as the seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. All I'd have to say is I think Councillor Stone has covered it beautifully. I don't really have anything further to add at this time, but thank you so much. It's really exciting.
Thank you. Any speakers against? In that case, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Congratulations to all those committee members. We move now to the next item, which is the Audit and Risk Committee Annual Report and Appointment of Chair. Would councillors like a report? May I invite Rhys Thomas to present a short report to councillors?
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. The purpose of this report is to do two things: to present the annual report for Council's Audit and Risk Committee for the audit year just completed, and also to seek Council's endorsement of the chair of the committee's nomination for its chair for this calendar year. The Audit and Risk Committee, and before it the Audit Committee, is responsible for providing advice and assurance to Council, particularly around areas of risk management, control and compliance, and financial and performance accountability and responsibilities. The reason I referred both to the Audit Committee and to the Audit and Risk Committee is councillors will recall that in about August of last year, the Audit Committee was in fact dissolved and the Audit and Risk Committee established in its place. This change was made in response to some legislative requirements brought on by the adoption of the Local Government Act 2020, and so this report covers the work of both committees. The year just gone, the audit year just gone, has certainly been a busy one. It was predicted at the beginning of the year that it would be an eventful year, anticipating the upheaval that would come from the change arising from the new Local Government Act. What wasn't anticipated and clearly overshadowed everything that Council did in the last year was the implications and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on Council's operation. That had implications for the Audit Committee in that its internal audit program was suspended for a period and then recommenced with virtual audits, a process that had never been undertaken either by Council or by our internal auditor in the past. Our external audit, looking at our financial statements for the year just gone, was conducted largely virtually, and that was a new process, and it was challenging and time-consuming. And the committee, in fact, extended a particular thanks to Council's finance team, led by Dermot McAlery and our former Chief Financial Officer, Mark Montague, and it would be remiss of me not to reiterate that thanks to them in very trying circumstances at this opportunity. The chair of the committee, Helen Lanyon, served throughout that last audit year, and in addition to her role on our audit committee, Audit and Risk Committee, made a particular contribution to Council in providing some independent oversight in the early stages of Council's significant COVID-19 community recovery package, and helping Council establish the governance framework for the rollout of that package. The other independent members, David Ashmore and Vince Philpott, also contributed strongly throughout the year, as did former councillors Misha Coleman and James Searle. The rest of I won't go through in detail the annual report. There was an internal audit program, an external audit program, and a number of other things that took place during the year, as well as the preparation for a broadened responsibility of the committee under the new Local Government Act, which is now underway. The second part of our report seeks to endorse Council's endorsement of the committee's recommendation that Helen Lanyon be reappointed to serve as chairperson throughout 2021, and I'll leave it there, and I'm happy to take any questions councillors might have.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Are there questions from councillors? No. There's a recommendation in front of us and I seek a way forward. Do I have a mover for the motion? I'm happy to move it. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Stone. As the mover, I will speak to the motion. So I first want to start out by thanking Helen Lanyon, David Ashmore, Vince Willpott and former councillors Misha Coleman and James Searle, as well as council officers for your work on the committee in 2019 and 20 and for your contribution to good governance in the City of Yarra. Thank you for your work in preparing the annual report and speaking under the assumption that the recommendation will be carried. Congratulations to Helen on your reappointment as Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee. As a delegate of the committee, having attended one meeting, I have some insight into the incredible depth of knowledge, hard work and diligence of this committee. So I'm truly in awe of it, and I look forward to the Audit and Risk Committee establishing their work plan for the following year and driving that continuous improvement and risk reduction across the organisation. So thank you very much for the report. Councillor Stone, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'll endorse all those comments. I think we're very fortunate to have the Audit and Risk Committee, the external auditors that we have, they're not auditors, members that we have right now. They're extremely competent and have a breadth of experience, and Helen Lanyon is an excellent chair. I just wanted to note that report was for audit and risk, which can be extraordinarily dry and difficult. It was a very readable report and extremely interesting. So for anyone who hasn't read it, I recommend you do. Congratulations to Helen. Thank you to Mr. Thomas for this report, and I endorse the motion.
Thank you. Any speakers against? No. In that case, we'll put it to the vote. All those in support? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. We'll move on to notices of motion now. Item 13.1 is a notice of motion by Councillor Sophie Wade. Councillor Wade, would you like to introduce this item?
Sure. So I've made a small alteration, which I think can be seen on screen at the moment, to what I'd proposed and what was put out in the agenda, which is just to refer to an online survey instead of a USA Yarra page, because it turned out one was already in the works, and so it made more sense to go with what was already there. This motion is basically just to try to get some information about the outdoor dining parklets. They seem to have been really popular. They've really brought our streets to life, and we just want to make sure that we have all the information in front of us when we're making decisions about if and how to continue the program.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? I'm happy to second it. Thanks. Councillor Wade, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, so just to echo what I said just then, and also the thoughts that came up during Ms Manning's question and the responses earlier, COVID saw our streets kind of diminish in the usual liveliness that they have, and I think this outdoor dining really brought that back with a bang, and also meant that people could socialise in a really safe way. It was an opportunity for traders to get their businesses back on track, for people in the area, and particularly some of our young people who had a particularly crappy year, to potentially job opportunities. It just meant that those restaurants came back to life so much stronger and so much quicker. And yeah, it was a safe way for people to get back together. And so I'm so impressed by the officers and everybody involved for rolling that out as quick as they did. It was, yeah, truly remarkable achievement coming out of lockdown and coming out of everybody being locked in their houses to suddenly get our streets back to life like that. So excited to get this information.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. I'm happy to endorse those statements and to go ahead with what you've said. I don't need to add anything more. Are there any speakers against the motion? No. In that case, I will put it to the vote. All those in support? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. we come to item 14, urgent business, and I don't believe that there is any urgent business that has been brought to my attention.
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And that, in fact, brings us to the end of the formal business for this evening. Thank you very much to the public, to the council officers and councillors for your participation tonight, and see you next time.